came in and tried to assimilate tribes in general, to have them get away from who they are as traditional people, cultural, language, all of that. And they did it through legislation. They fought the war against Native Americans through legislation, through the government. And what they did in the boarding school era was really wrong.
And when we had our school here, our boarding school here in Kwiyagat, the people that practice our traditional prayers and services, and they prayed that the school here would go away, would really pray, says that school's no good, it's taking our language, we're getting a beating, you know, it's taking the Indian out of them.
One of the tragic parts about the boarding schools that I'm starting to notice, we talk about preserving an identity, but unfortunately a lot of generations don't have that identity because it was scared out of them. It was border schooled out of them. They didn't have that opportunity.
And now that we're talking about the importance and history of boarding schools, federally run boarding schools throughout the United States, Colorado had 5. Ute Mountain had 1 on reservation as well down in that community.
And I'm not sure exactly why our boarding school stopped, but it did. And so BIA, that boarding school, went away, and then our children were bused to Cortez to attend the Cortez public schools.
So they're up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready, getting some breakfast if they can get it at home, and then getting to the bus stop. So that's a concern that I've had for a lot of years. So for us being bused all the time, buses are not reliable, weather comes into play, snow days sometimes, or the safety of the roads, of CDOT roads, and sometimes they don't get plowed right away. Then to notify parents that it's canceled or we're on a 2-hour delay. So just busing students in general, this has always been a concern for our children.
So a lot of these kids, to get on a bus and go up to Cortez, pretty soon you're looking at a 45-minute trip for some of those kids, one way. That's a long time for a kindergartner or a first grader to be on a bus and then put in a long school day and go home.
I went to school over in the Montezuma Cortez school district. It was definitely an experience of itself, being able to understand that I came from one community area or confined from one area to the next for educational resources, and make that accessible was definitely a challenge for everyone in this community, in my community, to take that early drive, bus drive, leaving our community an hour and 45 minutes early from our households to go on to that journey of serving the institution that they were assigned to.
Saying that is we can't be Indian, so to speak, because being Indian, we're not really sought to by saying, I'm going to help you with your curriculum, I'm going to help you with your homework, and we see that big picture of what we might say, so to speak, you're not citizen by who you are, by saying who you really are, by talking your language, speaking your language with other peers. That makes it hard to be a part of the public schools.
I've had kids tell me that they had to change who they were from going to Kwiyagat to go to Cortez. I have to change who I am. I have to be different. I had a friend tell me that a kid told him it was like passing through a veil. I was this way in Kwiyagat, now I have to be this way in Cortez. And that was real powerful to hear that he'd been told that.
Disregard yourself in the cultural sense that you practice because you're going to a different field where the dominant the dominant population, whatever sectionality that I would ever feel most comfortable in, or that I was going to, was practicing a lot of different things that was just foreign to me.
As the education director, I was in many classrooms talking to many parents. Parents would come and sit with, like we are today, and say, you know what, my child is not happy at school. The teacher doesn't like him. The kids pick on him. Daily I was hearing this. And I would go up and talk to the teacher. Well, he just doesn't pay attention. He just, he has his head down, he doesn't do this. I said, what have you done to try and get him involved? I don't have time. I have 20 other kids in this classroom. Well, that's not a good excuse, And so I would go to the principal and he'd say, I'll try and work with them. Let's try and get the parent in to sit down with them. Well, the parent didn't want to come because back when they went to school, it was the same thing. So I had a hard time getting parents to go and talk to the teachers, because as parents, they had gone through the same thing their kid did. They didn't want to relive that. They didn't want their kids to go through it, but they didn't want to relive that either.
And so she, asked one of our colleagues, Peter Ordergo, how do we make change? And his response to her was, you start your own school.
After about 20 times of him saying, start your own school, I finally said, Peter, if I'm going to start a school, are you going to help me? And he said, yes, I will help you. So Peter and I got to talking. We started working with other people. We got Sherelle Lang, who is wonderful. She stepped in to help us right away.
She connected and reached out to me, and so that's where our design team was built.
Ernest House was another one, because he was here, and he said, hey, I heard a rumor that you want to start a school. I said, yes, I do.
It's so important to see, especially maybe also, I think about this often, is coming out of the pandemic. When kids were at home, and especially in a community like Kwiyagat, if the wind blows hard enough down there, the internet's out. And so as a community that didn't have broadband access, then all of a sudden remote learning is there at home. The community quickly mobilized to try to put hotspots in different parts of the community. All this was going on, and I think people were also thinking, wow, what if there was an opportunity to bring a school here? If not just sending our kids off the reservation, but what if there was an opportunity to not only have this here?
Keystone has been wonderful. Ernest got on board the very first day. I can remember him standing there and saying, you know what, I'm not with the Commission of Indian Affairs anymore, but he said, I am with Keystone, and he said, let me see what I can do to get them to be a partner. And man, it wasn't even a month before he said, okay, I've talked to the board, and they are very interested in helping you to become a school. And then he brought Melly in, and then he brought the RISE grant, which was critical to what we needed.
Ernest connected Keystone with the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe in southern Colorado to help write a proposal to the governor's office for RISE funding, and stands for Response, Innovation, Student Equity. And the intent really of the RISE funds through the governor's office were to target communities and school districts and most impacted because of COVID. The proposal was fully funded, $2.8 million from the governor's office in Colorado, and one of the largest proposals awarded in the state. And then Keystone was contracted with, again, through the tribe, with the resources from the grant to implement what we had put in place.
But Ernest, thank goodness, said, have you talked to CSI?
They learned about us and what we're trying to do in our community, and they said yes, so this is something that we're interested in supporting, and so that's who we submitted our charter application to.
And we got the school district. That was a landmark decision, let me tell you. They agreed to let us go under the CSI.
So that was the thing, right? Learning about what charter school is, what does that mean for Colorado? So one of our key partners in that was the NACA Inspired Schools Network out of Albuquerque. They had a network of schools they were already working with within New Mexico, but they were also reaching out to other indigenous communities. And so that's where we started learning what it all entails to start our school here.
And we want to start our own school with our own curriculum, with our own language and our cultures and the traditions that we know, and bring it back, revive it, but also include today's curriculum of the regular public school and combine them. That makes us stronger, as our students will achieve a little bit more, have more knowledge of who they are, where they came from, but be ready for the future for tomorrow.
One of the things that was important was our Nuche culture and language, right? Revitalizing our language, keeping our traditions and our values and our beliefs alive. And so that's where we really wanted to make sure our foundation of our school was.
It is restoring something that has always needed to be restored. At the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe, education is so important to any community of people, and for such a long time, Ute Mountain Ute tribal members have come to Cortez for their education, starting in kindergarten and beyond, and being able to restore that to the tribe, to build a true Indigenous school that focuses on rebuilding the Ute language. The fact that it's been nearly lost has been an essential piece of rebuilding this school and returning the autonomy that the tribe really needs.
Danny came, and he's very, he has all the expertise. He's been a principal at several schools. He's taught. His background is in human resources, which is good too. But he had the whole outline of what he wanted to do when he came on board.
Some of my friends from down here, from my years of working with them as a liaison and those other offices I held down here, they said, "Hey, would you be interested in, we're starting a school down here, would you be interested?" And I said, absolutely. I've always felt tremendous affection and I don't know, connection to the tribe. So they asked me to apply. I applied and got the job, and that's why I'm here.
So he said, this is what we need. We need something that's more hands-on, that is not just rote. This is what you do, then you do this, then you do that. He said it needs to be open, where the teachers can pull and get different kids involved. Maybe this one has a learning disability, but this one doesn't. How can we get them both involved? And he was very good about picking what we had.
When it comes down to culture and education, we are truly in a gray area as far as I'm concerned, in my experience. The beauty of it is that's the whole idea. We're going to get the same academic or better process and progress, but we're going to do it through culture. That is a huge challenge, because this is a first-time program. We have one shot at this, is how I look at it. We've got to make it work.
Because school psychology, as amazing as it is to be in the field now, it was built to exclude. It was built to use IQ tests to do the opposite of what we're doing at KCA, really. And we still use a lot of those tools today, but we have a much different way of interpreting test results in relation to language and culture, to look at more appropriate measures, which is one of my main goals as I work with KCA long-term. And starting with student strengths is what's going to get us there.
And our scores show that. Our scores, I really thought we'd be barely above what we needed to be. We blew those scores out of the water. We're way up there.
So we knew what their benchmarks were, and then we used a series of interventions and tools to teach, of course, in the classroom, and then we measured their progress in the winter and in the spring. And from the fall to the spring, we saw huge growth, not just in student scores, but in their abilities to maintain attention to this kind of task. It's a computer-based, very short test, but it's standardized. It's something that you've got to focus on and do in a way that isn't play. The amount of growth that we saw was so heartening, because it means that every student had access to instruction, learned more skills, and there's not one of our students who didn't grow at all. Our growth was bigger than that of other typical elementary schools.
So we're not only preserving, but we're reintroducing in a lot of places. I've got families that come in and go, he came home and this is what he said to me. And they're teaching. So our kids are literally teaching their parents Ute language.
And what we've seen out of KCA as we started to create that curriculum was exactly that. Our children are going there, they're starting to learn numbers 1 through 10, they're identifying animals, they're identifying how to greet each other in Ute, and they're taking that home to their parents, and they're telling their parents, "Do Wichkush, good morning. Hello, my friend. I'm hungry. Sui, swaini, paini, chewing, manigini, 1 through 5. And the parents are astonished, hey, and they're learning from their kids, and the kids are teaching the parents and the grandparents. And it's really good to see that, and the kids are learning more. They're like sponges, and they bring all this language in and the culture, and it's a two-way thing.
So Red Sky, that's what she does. She comes home every day and she's counting, she's saying colors, she's seeing animals where we're driving, she says them all in Ute. She's teaching us how to say words.
I brought an RE1 board member down here because I'm still friends with many of the board members. She wanted to come see our school. I said, absolutely. We are walking down the hallway. We had just opened this school. It opened in October finally. We'd been in another location. Opened in October. I'm walking down the hallway with Mrs. Wright, one of our students walking down the hallway by himself to go to the bathroom. He needs to go to the bathroom, little 5-year-old. I said, Coda, tell Mrs. Wright hi. That's all I said. I didn't say it in Ute or anything else. He says, Mike, Tuguvin, Duichgus, Nunania Coda, which means, hello, my friend, good morning, my name's Coda. And he stood up and he's proud and he looked at her and had his shoulders back.
But for these students to definitely get that experience was something I've come to realize, it's a part of their well-being, it's part of their they're definitely what they deserve as an experience in education. And for us to provide that for them in a safe environment, an environment that definitely heightens that type of experience and ties that up to our number one objective, it's important to them and it's definitely important to us.
But really, when you get down to it, KCA is it's that seed that we're planting to see who's going to be the future teacher. Who's going to be the future principal? Are we creating a pipeline to go to whatever higher ed or certificate program that students want to do? If we're really wanting to change the needle in Indian country around high dropout rates, high suicide rates, high every other type of rate that Indigenous communities are faced with, it starts here.
We want to be successful. I want to have my kids to be able to compete anywhere. I want them, if they decided in 4th grade, you know what, I'm going to go someplace else, we're moving, I want them to be able to walk into a 4th grade classroom and have the knowledge they need to function in that classroom. That's the academic side of it.
Kwiyagat Community Academy has the goal in mind and with agreement with Charter School Institution to go all the way to 5th grade. We're currently in 2022, we are on the premise of opening up our 2nd grade. So we have achieved and have good grounds with our kindergarten and 1st grade. Being able to have a fully equipped elementary school is our first objective.
The physical side of it is we want a forever school. We want a school that has a cafeteria and has enough room for those things. We want a school that kids are proud of. There's a lot of research behind kids and what they can learn based on their surroundings. You put a kid in a rundown school, they've proven you take that same group of kids and they move into the new school for the new year, which has happened, and test scores go through the roof. And nothing's changed. They went to a different building. Surroundings matter.
The KCA, as important as it is, it's just one component. The Growing Ute Futures is this wraparound process that helps the families, that looks at the social and emotional support for kids, for families as well. Embedding that and having that all work together, and having an organization like Keystone who have experts in education, who've built schools before, who've been superintendents, who've been teachers, who've developed curriculum, like that's amazing. That's what we need, those partnerships.
The funding goes through September of 2023, and we know that the work won't be done then. So what we're embedding into this process is the ability to raise awareness about the process and the project and to create a sustainable funding source so that the work that we've started can continue.
I cordially invite people that have time, that those who like to travel, come down to the KCA when a special event's happening. See it for yourself, hear it for yourself, and see how the power in the house of our kids are performing their traditional languages and they're singing, and yet being educated with their curriculum, working hand in hand. That's a sight to see.
had I known all the things that we were going to have to do, I'm not sure I would have started this school. I would have said, Peter, forget that. But we worked through it, and because we had such a wonderful design team who brought in all that expertise and shared it with everybody, and we all jumped in and worked on it, that's what made us a success.
And what I hope 10, 20, 30 years from now, we will see those students becoming the next tribal leaders, the next teachers, the next dean of students, the next president of Fort Lewis College. That opportunity is there.